Just one sec, and I think we'll be there. Okay, we are live now, so you can introduce us, Orla.
Right, so I welcome everyone to Lockdown Film School. This is 7th Row's weekly discussion series with filmmakers in various fields. And this is our 8th session, and we plan to keep running the series through until August. So you can catch up with past sessions on our YouTube channel, 7th Row. And there are also links on our website at lockdownfilmschool.com. Today, we were really excited to welcome filmmaker Alice Winocour in advance of the release of her latest feature, Approxima. So I'm going to introduce Alice now. Alice Winocour is a Parisian writer and director who studied directing at La Famille. Her first feature, Augustine, premiered in the Cannes Critics Week and was nominated for the César for Best First Feature. Her second feature, Disorder, which starred Matthias Schoenaerts, premiered at Uncertain Regard and won the AFI Fest Special Jury Award for Outstanding Achievement in Directing. Winocour has written or co-written multiple critically acclaimed scripts for other directors, including Mustang, for which she won a César, and we named her third feature, Approxima, one of the best films of the past decade, and it received a special jury mention at TIFF last year. So we're very excited to welcome Alice. We're going to do about 45 minutes of Q&A between Alex and Alice, and then in the last 15 minutes, we'll turn it to the people watching for questions. So if you're in Zoom, you can look at the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen and just type in questions throughout the session as they come to you. I'll be looking at them throughout, and then we'll address them at the end. So over to Alex.
Okay. Well, I guess we want to just start from the beginning. So what got you interested in becoming a writer and director?
Yeah, hello everybody. Yes, I don't know, it's a difficult question. I think it was a kind of unconscious process because I studied law. I wanted to be I wanted to be a lawyer, and I think, yes, for me cinema was more like a kind of passion, but I was not thinking of it as a job, because it was more something of my childhood. You know, with my little brother, we were watching films all day long in a very compulsive way, and so it was like we were really films were part of our lives and our games. So it was something that was like essential to me. But yes, I didn't thought about it as a job. And then it was like, yeah. A friend of mine told me you should try, because I was writing stories, but for myself, I have always been writing, and sometimes like fairy tales and stuff. And so he told me we should like try this to pass this exam for La Fémis. But it was more again like a kind of a game. And then I succeed, and when I then I entered that school, and I realized how it was like something I really wanted to do.
So maybe you can tell us a bit about what you felt you kind of learned or got out of studying at La Famille?
I discovered that it was going to be my job, you know, and first I was in the script writing department, but in that school you can try different things, like you can also direct, and we had like cameras for summer. We could like film our projects, and I went to Bulgaria and I did a lot of short films with my boyfriend at that time, and it was really fun. We had a lot of fun. We went in a Bulgarian island, and we did so many films, and a film with special effects, with a room which take off, and like so many crazy things. So yes, then and also as in the script writing department, I started to write my first film, Augustine, about, you know, those hysterics in Charcot's hospital in La Salpêtrière. But at first I just wanted to write the stories. I never thought I could direct it. But then, because I was looking for a director and couldn't find anyone, then I thought, okay, I'm going to direct it myself.
And so, I mean, what was that like to sort of jump in then to directing that?
Yeah, I think it's something that, I mean, I learned a lot writing it, because, you know, it was like this subject was like a kind of a Pandora box. You know, this hysteria, this disease, these women, they were suffering from, you know, those sexual fits. They were expressing kind of rebellion, a rebellion of the body. And it was something really, to me, modern in a way. I was afraid to do a period film for my first feature, and I wanted the film to be modern and to be about the revolt of the body. And so it was a very long process for me, because I read so many books about those women, and I read also all the medical reports, you know, of real patients of Charcot, and I had to reinvent this story to make it mine and to forget everything that I had read. I think I could have made like a, I don't know, a book about hysteria, or like, because it's there. Yes, there is so many things fascinating. You know, it's also about, yeah, like the essence of cinema, like men that are looking at women with desire, a mix of fear and desire and stuff. And yeah, so I learned a lot. And also, before this film, I had directed short films. And I had realized also that I felt really good on, on set.
I mean, your films are so kind of like visceral, and a lot of the time there isn't always a lot of dialogue. So I'm wondering, like, what do your scripts look like?
Yeah, there are some dialogues, but it's true that to me, like, cinema is more like a kind of physical experience and sensorial. I mean, it's the kind of films also that I like, and also I think it's also, I like when it's carnal, you know. I thought really about Cronenberg movies and those kind of films that were so important to me. And yeah, so I think also it's also because why sound is also so important to me in my films and in the process of making the film.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about Cronenberg and your sort of, if you could tell me a bit about like your, because I know you've been inspired by Cronenberg and also by like other horror movies, and I'm wondering a bit about, about what films and how they've inspired you.
Yeah, it's true that I have a kind of a relationship with those kind of films that they are like, it's made now. I understand it may seem strange, but they are like part of my childhood. For Psycho, for example, the Hitchcock movie was really the film that we were watching, like, I don't know, like many times a day with my little brother, and it was like the center of games that we were like playing with the characters, and it was like and my parents were not afraid at all that we were like so obsessed by this film. Now that I'm a mother, I feel that I will be a little like I don't know, like I will ask questions, but they didn't. And it was, and then Cronenberg. It's funny though, because now that we've been in lockdown, I rewatched those films that were so important to me. Like first Cronenberg's movie, like body horror movies as well, like Scanner or Rabbit or Dead Ringers, all those kind of films, and they have a strange like calming effect on me. I don't know if it's because, you know, of the virus and you know, my hypochondria, because I'm really hypochondriac, but it's like I feel it in a way. Yeah, calming. I know it seems weird, but then, yeah.
So, I mean, how are you thinking about those? Like, are you consciously thinking about those horror influences when you're making your films? Because I feel like there's sort of a gothic horror element to both Augustine and Disorder.
Yeah, I think that in this darkness is something that I intimately felt close. There's a kind of cathartic thing, and definitely in those films that I feel intimately connected. But also, yeah, I also have been reading all the Gothic, this romantic 19th century literature like Brownie Sisters, or I mean, I've felt also very close from this. I mean, I could connect with those girls that were like having like dreams about worlds they didn't know, or like kind of dreaming those characters. And but yeah, I think it's kind of gothic, but it's a kind of inspiration, definitely. But I don't know in which way, because what I'm interested in is also sampling. I think it's really something of our generation to have multiple influences. And, my mother was recording on VHS, those films that we were watching with my little brother. And sometimes she was falling asleep. So we had like half of a movie, and then we had the beginning of another movie, because then she thought the other movie was interesting. So those movies, they are connected like very strongly in my mind, and forever. And I don't know if that is why I like to mix different kind of things. Maybe it's the origin of it, but I think more of this. I think it's a kind of generation thing also, that we are also inspired by very different kind of films, like Russians, American, Chinese, and they're like I don't know, yes, inspiring. It's not only because I'm French that I'm inspired by French films or whatever.
So what are some of your other inspirations?
There are many, and also I think all films that are very sensual, and like I don't know if you saw La Ciénaga, like Lucretia Martel, and those kind of films, or like so many. But it's also, I get obsessional as I was as a little girl. Each time I'm working on a subject, or I'm discovering a world or a kind of genre, then I try to like see all kind of films that are related to the story I'm telling. Or I think I'm still really compulsive and on the about films.
So what were you watching for Approxima?
For Proxima, I've been watching many different films, but not only space movies, because I was not like a space movies fan. I was more attracted by space, but more like stars, and I was fascinated by this world, by this world, but more the real world than the American version of it. And, so I thought, I saw, of course, Tarkovsky's Solaris, and I saw others like which had nothing to do, like also a film that has been very important for me, like Alice in the Cities, the Wim Wenders movie. Also about this relationship between this man and this little girl, and in Germany, and also like Nanni Moretti, Mia Madre. Like it's like always very different kind of films.
I mean, so you've written because you've written scripts for all of your own movies, but you also have co-written films with other people, and I'm wondering about like how that process differs.
Yeah, as I told you, I studied script writing at school, and I've always been writing for me stories, and so I felt comfortable in this world of writing, but I haven't really thought about writing for directors. It was more like encounters and story of friendship. I mean, with the directors I've worked with, some of them I met them at school or in Ciné Fondation in Cannes, where I have presented one of my film, and yeah, so it was like a kind of very strong like a desire to tell the story. But it's very different from writing for yourself. And yeah.
In what way? Like, is it just different what you put into the script?
Much more intelligent writing for others than writing for yourself, I think. Yeah, you are like maybe more, yeah, it's maybe more difficult for yourself. I don't know.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little or tell us a little bit about sort of your interest in kind of traumatized bodies and how that's sort of something that you've explored in all of your films.
Yeah, definitely traumatized or post-traumatized bodies is something that is haunting me. And I think it's also because I should go maybe to the shrink to solve this. But it's a kind of anxiety, and but I think it's a world for cinema. You know, those I'm fascinated by the body language. You know, when there is no words to tell your desires or your pain or your fears. And then the body is talking for yourself and sometimes screaming, like in hysteria, like in those fits, and sometimes you are like a child. When you look at children, when they look at their hands and their hands are not like part of their bodies, it's like something else. Then you are like a spectator, like looking at the theater of your body. And to me, it's really like fascinating, and it's also something very wide for cinema. So I keep like writing about this.
And I mean, I know you were talking about sound before, and I mean, the sound in your film is always so great.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about that even at the writing stage, or like how does that thread through your process?
Yeah, it's from the beginning that sometimes I really have. It's really something I'm really sensitive to. Maybe it's also because I'm blind from one eye, that I can't see really. So maybe it's something also that I've developed, that is something that is more important to me, sounds. But it's also I like this immersive thing, like that you get really into sensations, and to me mixing is really a very important part of the process. And I'm like super excited in the editing room when it's getting to sound. That's so many like things you can do. And for this last film, I also had I was very, very lucky also to be able to work with Sakamoto, a great composer, and he's also working a lot with sound design and recording, of the of nature, the astronauts in the film that are recording sounds of nature, and that's what Sakamoto is doing with his music, and sounds, of the, feathers and like water and mountains. And so I thought it was great because opera is more like the music that is associated to space since Kubrick movie, but my film was more about the earth. So
Yeah.
the earth sounds.
So like, so how does that, is most of the sound stuff in the mixing, or like, are you also thinking about that when you're on set?
Yeah, I'm also thinking about this on set and while writing. Yeah, it's very, very important to me.
So I mean, your films all have these like very different scores that are also integrated with the sound, and I'm wondering like, how do you pick composers and figure out how to do those scores?
Yeah, for my first film, Augustine, which was about hysterics, and I thought about exorcism films, and I had to stage those fits that in reality are completely unreal. So it's difficult to stage something so extreme and to believe it in a movie. So I thought I have to be inspired by those exorcism movie, when you and I had watched like I attached the legs and the arms of the actress, and we were moving her body like this for her to have like strange movements, and I forgot your question.
Oh, okay, good question. Oh, I was wondering about the score.
Yeah, and so that's why I was inspired also by Dracula, like the Coppola movie, and also I thought about this composer who had worked on Eyes Wide Shut, and so it was like, yes, a kind of connection with the film I was inspired by. And for my second film, I decided to work with Gesaffelstein, who is an electro musician, like who has a very dark also universe. And I thought that the music had to evoke like war and trauma, and that it had to be the sound of war in a sensorial way. And so he came on the sets, Gesaffelstein, and he composed really in the house where we were shooting. And because I gave him the script, but he said that he couldn't read scripts, that it was boring to him, which I totally understood. And then he said, I prefer to come on set. And when he arrived, he said it was a kind of asylum, because we were like screaming, and then it was like because it was like the whole shooting was in that house, we were not moving, and so it was like, and Matthias was really violent. It was violent scenes, but he was really inspired by the atmosphere on set. That was fun. And for my third film, as I told you, it was very hard, the process for that film, to find the right musician, because I knew like all the music I was thinking about, I know were like I needed something really emotional, and at the same time really, really I don't know, like fragile and down to earth. And yes, then I thought about this Sakamoto, and I wrote him a letter, but I thought it was like something more like a dream. And then I sent him the script, and he was really moved by this idea that astronauts were recording sounds of nature, because it's what he had done.
So what were the key things in the mixing process for Approxima?
Yeah, it was more like to have those details in sounds, like breathing of the mother and daughter. And because to me, like, my obsession in that film was to confront like the infinitely small to the infinitely big, like the intimacy of a family compared to the galaxy, or some very different kind of things, like very small and very, very big. And so for the music, it had to be the same, something really wild and not wild, but wide, and something really tiny.
Mm. I mean, one of the scenes that really stood out to me in Proxima is when she's in isolation and she's talking to her daughter through that.
Yeah, in quarantine.
Yeah.
The beginning of quarantine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also something that I saw because I went to Kazakhstan. You know, we shot in real places where it was very exciting to be in those places when, I mean, it was the first film ever that was shot. So it was like something really new to go there. And yes, astronauts before going to space, they have to spend like 2 or 3 weeks in quarantine, and they can't see their own families. They have to see each other through a window. And it's also, of course, it's to prevent from germs, but more of this is to prepare you, like it's kind of meditation to prepare you for the, like, to go in another world, you know, to like retire from humanity in a way, because it's kind of dying also to go in space, like you leave, you know, this world. So yeah, to me it was really, and also I thought about Paris, Texas scene in which Nastasia Kinski is like talking to her ex-husband. So that's what inspired me, you know, on the glass you see like the two reflects of their faces.
Yeah, so I'm wondering about how you work with actors, and like starting with how do you cast your films, because the performances are so important and they're so amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was different 3 times, and but I really like working with actors. I really admire, you know, when I see how frightening it can be to be in front of a camera, and I really admire actors who takes risks. And in my films, like yeah, in a different ways, but they, so Cove for that first film had really to, like, yes, it was hard, like to like improve, I mean, to have those sexual fit in front of everyone, and to have those fits in your bodies as well, like she had like symptoms of real hysterics that she hadn't read at all, because so it was really scary also in a way. And also with Eva, it was a very strong experience as well. We because she's not a mother herself, so she was afraid not to be credible as a mother, and she's a real astronaut, because she was not at all afraid of things who had frightened me, like to be like the very, very difficult training she had to do. But it was nothing for her. That what she was afraid of was like not to be credible. But I think what it was also great for the character, because it's also something, me being also a mother, I could feel like not being the perfect mother, not doing the right gestures, and being clumsy as a mother. And I think a lot of women could connect with that feeling. So yeah, I like working with actors. And we did a lot of rehearsals also with Eva and the little girl, and also with Lars. And we see each other every weekend for months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, spending time together, and going to park and to restaurants, and also, yeah, also having rehearsals of different scenes that were not in the script.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and also with Matthias, we spend a lot of time with soldiers training with soldiers, and I have a very good friend who became a very good friend, who was a PTSD soldier, and he was also kind of inspiration because I was writing the script and asking constantly questions to him about the character. Then it was a kind of therapy for him as well. And Matthias became also close from him, and we had like training with him also with other soldiers, and a lot of things we did also on Matthias' body, like to have tattoos. They're not real tattoos, but we have imagined all those tattoos from soldiers that I had observed tattoos, and then we did them on Matthias' body. And to me, it's also really about immerse yourself also in a world. As also with Eva, we went to Russia. We worked with Russian trainers. They didn't give a shit that it was Eva Green. They were really hard on her, and also met so many astronauts. One of them was completely in love with her, and he was like, I think he was going to faint when he saw her in the training center in Kazakhstan, that he thought it was like a dream. And because he had like a poster of her as a teen in his room, and so he was like, he's a very strong astronaut, very physical, and he's like the big star of astronaut because he's the head of the International Space Station, and nothing can like he's very, very, very like controlled, even if he's about to die. But when he saw her, he was like almost fainting. So that was very funny. But yes, I think it's a hard process that we work a lot, and that it's also a kind of process to become very close, and also to trust each other, because it's like going in a trip together. And I think this confidence you need to have, and to know each other, and to be like really hand in hand, that nothing can happen to you because you are so close. And so I think it's also building this trust.
So like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's about spending time together and having strong experiences. Like those trainings in Russia and Kazakhstan was very hard for Eva, but at the same time, we had a lot of fun doing this, and also to put ourselves in danger is something really like exhilarating, and that builds also the trust that we know we take that risk, but together. And of course, I mean, we're not like as real astronauts risking our lives, but it seems like when you go for like a kind of adventure like this, or it's also, it's a kind of a trip.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I really love about Approxima is like, because I'm an engineer by training, and I found like I've never seen like people in science and engineering portrayed so accurately on screen, like right down to the costumes and like the kinds of jokes that they have. Like it was so real.
Yeah, because I worked also with real engineers as consultant, but I've been like traveling from Cologne where there is the European Space Agency Center, and our city where there is the Russian Space Center, and Kazakhstan for 2 years. I've met so many people, and as I was writing the script, but I really wrote it. It was not like asking for consultant after writing the script. I became really friends with astronauts, Russian Americans, and they were really like I really immersed myself in that world to like understand it more, and also because I was fascinated by trainings, as I'm fascinated by those physical things and experiments, and I could like spend days or like taking notes, or as I was like, I had authorizations, because at first they thought I was journalist, but then seeing me like months after months and traveling in the centers, then they understood I was not going to live like that. So like writing, and it was it was really fascinating to me to see those. But it was also like to see a kind of mutation, like it's, you know, those astronauts, they have to mute to become space persons, because you can go in space like this. And it's also something that was for me very different from the representation you see in American movies. Some of them I really like though, but it's just that it seems so easy to leave the earth, you know, to prepare yourself, because it's this idea, you know, of the conquest, of this idea that there is no place for fragility. There is, you have to show that you're like so strong and virile and stuff. But in reality, those guys, they are really tough. And those women, believe me, they are really tough, but they're so fragile in this. To me, to see those trainings, it was like an experience of human fragility and the limit of our bodies, that we are not made to live in another planet. We have been designed for that one. And it's so hard, you know, and they really have to hurt themselves to become those space persons. And so that's really what I thought I had to film, to see how hard it was to leave that planet and to leave the one you love.
I mean, so you were saying that Eva was doing these trainings, like, is it like everything we see in the film she was doing for real, or like what was she doing?
No, she couldn't, because, you know, like the training suit is like so heavy. It's like 150 kilos. It's like,
oh my God,
super heavy. So she wouldn't be able, like, so she had like how do you say? I mean, it's another body. It's just her, it's like special effects. But still, you know, she had to really train for, like, to have muscles to be credible, to have a body credible, and also for protocols. It's very, very difficult also to learn Russians, to learn German, to learn, like, there's so many languages. And and also like the centrifuge scenes. I mean, of course, it's not her as well, because it's like you have 3 or 4 elephants on your thorax. So even if she's very, very strong, I think we could have break her.
Yeah.
Was not the idea of it.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's really, really like unique in the film is the way that you deal with like just everyday sexism, like just the way that it's like almost insidious. And I'm wondering like how you thought about like putting us in her experience for that.
Yeah, it was the first idea. I mean, the first image that inspired me for Augustine was this woman naked in front of men in like suits, like black suits, looking at her, you know, as an animal, as a guinea pig. And to me, I think I'm really interested in this kind of relationship and this kind of fear of what is like, I don't know, like of this, of being a woman, you know, like, of course, it was something in that film that was a bit like extreme, like this, because they didn't know what was that illness, and so they were projecting their phantasma about what, and their fears about, you know, the woman body, and but I think that this mix of fear and desire and the way men are looking at women has not disappeared and will never disappear. And So maybe it's something that I'm working on in my films. But also this idea to tell stories, even if in Maryland, disorder, if it's in the man point of view, but I'm really interested in the idea of telling stories from the woman point of view, or point of views that have never been told, like in Proxima. I think I hadn't seen any films from this point of view, and I think that's what is interesting to me, that tells stories that have never been told, or in a different way, like try to find another way, or to reverse it. Or in Augustine, when I was writing the scripts, everyone was telling me, you should write it from the doctor point of view, because the woman, she's crazy. So how can you connect with this woman? And I was like, no, she's not crazy. It's her body when she's crazy, and she can't control it, but we can connect to a woman that is trying to have the control. And also, I like this idea of the relationship of power between, it was like a sadomasochist relationship, between the two of them, but the power is not, it's also on the victim. And from Disorder, it was like, the idea was that women were not had to tell story about family or intimacy, or that women could also tell stories from write about men. Or also some people told me it's a too violent story for a woman, or it's not what you're supposed to do. And I think it's really sad that there's just Catherine Bigelow or like so few directors that are considered as credible for this kind of films. So yeah, I think women can, of course, direct any type of films. And I thought it was interesting to reaffirm that you could do any kind of film. And of course, in Proxima, it was to show a mother that is not like a stupid mother, the perfect mother, the one that doesn't exist, that we talk about in the film, that there are many different types of mothers. And I think when there is a strong character, because there's a lot of strong character of women that we have seen in space movies, in Gravity, but if they have children, the children are dead. Because I think the scriptwriters don't want children that could prevent the woman from her mission. But in life, women have missions and they have children and have to deal with both of they have to one astronaut, she told me that she learned multitasking, that being a mother was the best thing for her to learn multitasking. I thought, that's what I wanted to show in the film. But also, I think it's also interesting to show complex character of men. I like to have this complexity in characters. That's why it was so cool to work with Matt Dillon. Not to have the stupid bad guy, but to know that he's much more intelligent than this, and that he has, that is different from just what he thinks. The first things you think when you see him in the film.
So I wonder about your collaborators, because I know you've worked with the same DOP and editor on all of your films, and I'm wondering about how those collaborations have developed.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a family in a way, that I feel comfortable with them, and I don't know what to say. That it's of course, it's easier to work with people and they are artistic collaborator, and some of people change from one film to another, but yeah, I like to work also with the same crew.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to Orla now for our Q&A.
Okay.
Cool. So we have a question on YouTube asking if you feel like there's a common theme that the three protagonists of your three films share.
Maybe the idea of liberation, that they all try to liberate themselves. And I could say also that I always write stories like in Mustang also, where people like sometimes, especially women, but not only, but liberates in the end. I like stories of rebellion and stories of liberation.
We have another question on the Zoom chat asking, they heard that shortly after Disorder came out that there was an American remake planned or being like pushed around, and he's curious if you were initially surprised that a major studio would want to adapt your film so quickly.
No, I was not surprised. That I was asked also if I would be interested to direct the remake, which I thought was really strange. It was my second film that I thought I was like I had to like say everything I had in that film. But yeah, I hope it will happen.
Question for me is in what way has sort of this whole lockdown quarantine period affected your work or anything that you were working on?
Yeah, it affected it a lot because I was supposed to shoot in October a new film that I had written, and it's with an American actress and in Paris, and because of the COVID, everything is like now in standby, and I don't really know when. I mean, the situation will get better. It has to get better in the US and then in France. So yeah, it's a bit boring, but at the same time, it's like I think it's it has been also a great experience. I mean, I feel like it's not very different from my life that I feel like in lockdown when I'm not shooting. Like my natural states.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So that script was finished and you were in pre-production.
Yeah, it was finished and I was about to begin the prep. So it was a bit like I was starting to work with all the crew, and so they had to move to another film. So it was frustrating. That's I believe in, like, yeah, the destiny. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Well, if we don't have any more audience questions, we might wrap up now. But thank you so much, Alice, for joining us. I think it was a really great chat. Yeah, and I think Approxima will be coming to various places in the world in the next month or so. We really encourage people to watch it.
Release in London, I think it's the 15th of July, because we were supposed to release it the 1st of April.
Yeah.
That's because of the lockdown postponed. And so it's now, I think it will be for the reopening of cinemas. So I hope people won't be afraid to go like to cinemas.
Yeah. It will be in some cinemas in a socially distant capacity in mid-July. So if you want to go see it there, then you can. And we'll also be sending an email to everyone who's watching in the coming days with details of where to watch Alice's previous films.
Yeah.
So you can go back.
With the mask.
Yes.
An astronaut suit.
Yeah,
Okay.
take a cue from Eva Green in the movie. To everyone watching, next week we'll be hosting a discussion between two actors, Lily Gladstone and Frank Mosley. So tune in on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern time next week for that.
It's July 5th.
And yes, July 5th. And then take a look at all our upcoming guests, and to watch past sessions, just go to lockdownfilmschool.com. And you'll be able to rewatch a recording of this session straight away on YouTube if you missed any of it, or if you want to share it with friends. And yeah, thanks again for joining us, Alice. It's been really great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, bye, and sorry for connection problems.
Oh, no worries,
no,
it happens.
No worries. Cool.
See you, bye.
See you.